Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and today I am here with the very first double page series of 30 Days of Sketches with Chrissy's Beautiful Life. I'm super excited to be kicking off this month, and day one is my sketch. So I thought that I would pull out some Disney collections. I created this graphic because I'm going to be creating a lot of Disney layouts this month, and all of my simple stories, say cheese 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all mixed together. If I can remember which ones I was using at that time, I will let you know. But most of the time, I just pull through my scraps, and all 4 of these collections work really well together, so I tend to just mix and match them. I created this sketch, and my thought process was that I wanted to include all of my favorite things. At least at this moment, my favorite things include stitching, banners, and full-size photos. So that's what you get on this layout. I first looked through all of my scraps, trying to pull out papers that I thought would work for my banners. My banners are 1 inch wide, and I knew that I was going to be cutting the notch in them just like the sketch calls for. I was really trying to pull in any paper that had a small enough pattern to it that would look nice in the 1 inch, as well as would coordinate with each other. The centerpiece of the layout calls for a larger piece of paper. And at first I thought I was going to use this blue paper that has the white like stardust on it. And I did have all of my photos printed at 4x6 because I knew that I could cut down 2 of them pretty easily to a 4x4. Once I cut out the photos and laid it on top of the blue paper, I felt like the photos were getting lost in the blue paper because there's a lot of blue sky in a majority of the photos. So I decided that I was going to try something else. I pulled out quite a few different pieces, but I did end up with this wood grain. I cut off the top piece so that you can only see the bottom half of this wood grain paper. And I feel like the wood grain was definitely needed as a neutral because there is a ton of color on this layout. So as I'm getting the photos and the paper down, let me just talk a little bit about these particular photos. One of our traditions is to save the more expensive meals for our birthdays. We are pass holders, so we tend to eat very snacky foods when we're there. We don't tend to stay very long. If we do go for dining, it is a specific reason that we're there for dining. But most of the time, we would prefer to just hit up the snack carts or hit up some of the smaller quick service restaurants and grab something and go. There's so much to do at the parks that dining is something that we save for special events. For this particular year, I wanted to eat at Ohana, which is actually at one of the resorts. I am always going to choose a character dining for my birthday. So Ohana had Stitch and Lilo as well as Mickey. I also learned that you can get your button personalized. Most of the time when you go to celebrate something, whether it's your first visit or your birthday, or you could be celebrating anything, you can get a free button from Disney, and they will just handwrite whatever the situation may be. For your birthday, it's going to be your name. If you're celebrating, they'll write something that you're celebrating. In one of the shops, you can actually pay to have your name or whatever you would like added to the button, and it's done in calligraphy. So it is a gorgeous button. I decided that I wanted to do that. So what I decided to do was go to the park before our reservation. Everyone else met me over at Ohana. And since I was at the park and I had to wait to get it done, I was like, I'm just going to take a bunch of pictures in front of the castle and just get some pictures of me. So that's what this layout is really all about, are just some great photos that the awesome photographers at Disney took of me in front of the castle. The 3 4x6 photos that are down the right-hand side of the layout, I had just gotten my button and I wanted to get a picture with my button. So I asked the cast member who was just kind of standing around because there was a show going on in front of the castle. And I was like, hey, would you be willing to take my photo of the button? Because I wasn't sure if she was able to take the photo while the show was going on. And she was like, absolutely. And so we started taking some of the photos, and then she was like, oh wait, hold on a second. She had me stand in this pose for quite a bit. She's like, it's going to be worth it. And so as the fireworks started going off, she started taking photos. So I got these amazing photos of my button with the fireworks behind me, and it just turned out so great. I love cast members and their ability to take some amazing photos. All right, so that was a lot of details about the photos themselves, but I highly recommend if you are at Disney, whether you're a pass holder there for the day or you're there on vacation, absolutely purchase the photo pass because it's well worth the photos that you're going to get. You're going to get all the ride photos. You're going to get any photos that the cast members take. It's an amazing purchase. I had added the wood grain paper down, but then I realized that I didn't want the wood grain paper to go all the way to the edge. So I just used my T-square ruler and X-Acto knife to trim off about an inch from the edge of the paper. And then I pulled out this stripe paper because I wanted to have a finished edge along the wood grain. I also pulled out my border punch, and this is the ticket border punch. It makes the paper look like the edge of a ticket. So I punched the border and then I trimmed it out, and I'm going to add it to the left and right of the layout. And I really enjoy having these strips of paper like this at the edge of items because I feel like it finishes it off. When I put the wood grain paper down, I only put adhesive in the center because I knew that I was going to be tucking in the strips behind it. So I laid out my strips of paper, and I'm thinking at this point that there's two papers that I'm not really liking. The khaki paper with the polka dots on it, as well as the black paper with the stars on it. The stars and the polka dots are so large that it makes it difficult to see. But I went ahead and cut out the star banner and figured that once I got everything down, then I would make a decision on what papers I would actually use if I was going to keep them or not. So really, I'm just using my banner punch to punch out the edge and then just cutting off a strip that would be long enough to tuck underneath the khaki paper. I was struggling with this star paper because it really wasn't long enough. So I did pull out my tweezers so that I could make sure that the paper was centered inside the banner punch. I was able to use a ton of scraps on this layout, which is always nice. So once I got the papers down, I realized that I would probably be better off pulling out the 6x8 paper pad because those papers are in a smaller print. So I found this white paper that has stars on it. Definitely like that better. I also pulled out a firework paper. Even though I already had the firework paper, it was also larger. So in the 6x8 print, it did make the fireworks appear more than it was in the larger print. And then this is where I was like, I'm just not liking that star paper. So I have this camera paper, which is actually the back side of the star paper. So I just went ahead and pulled up the star paper and added the camera paper in. And then I really like this configuration. So I just used some adhesive on the banner pieces and then cut off the pieces that were really overlapping the wood grain and then just tucked them under the layout. So as I'm getting the rest of these banners down, I do want to encourage you guys to check out everyone who is playing along with the 30 Days of Sketches. I am going to be participating every day. So in the month of October, I will have a layout a day with all of the sketches. And I am excited to try out some different sketches because there are definitely sketches that I would not have used had it not been for this challenge. I love page maps and scrapbook generation sketches. They definitely have a feel to them that I really enjoy, kind of the clean and simple look. And some of these sketches were out of my comfort zone. But that's the whole point, is to try out something different, and maybe it's something that I end up liking, or maybe it's something that I'm like, yeah, I'm not willing to try that again. I do have all of the sketches planned out. So I have paired my sketches with the photos and they are on my spreadsheet. So I have it all planned out. And I am super excited that a majority of the layouts that I decided to work on are going to be Disney layouts. So I'm excited to be getting some of my Disney pass holder photos documented because I have a ton of them. All right, once I got all of the strips down, I realized that I was one short, so I did go back to the 6x8 paper pad and pulled out this plaid in the red and blue and black. And I really like the way that that kind of ends at the end of the banner strips. So then again, just cutting off the excess and then tucking them underneath that wood grain. And it looks like the pattern paper goes from the top and bottom. Of course, I had to pull out my Tim Holtz ruler to add my stitching holes. I am going to stitch around the wood grain in a black. I felt like that was just another neutral to add to the layout. And then each one of the strips, I'm also going to add a row of stitching. I pulled out my thread box so that I could match up the thread with the strips of paper. And I did repeat some of the colors. So I'm going to be using this burgundy color as well as an off-white, a yellow, a light blue, and then of course black as well. I slowed the video down here so that you could see all of the stitching. I did go one stitch underneath the wood grain so that it looks like the stitching goes from the top to the bottom. And then I'm going to start embellishing, which I know what you're thinking. There's a lot already going on this layout. I don't add a lot of embellishments. I do a cluster at the bottom left as well as the top right. I did pull out some flare, and I found one flare that I thought would work well with this layout, and the flare says Magical Moment. And then I pulled out my embellishment book that is specifically for Disney. And I'm just looking through trying to find something that's going to work up there, and I find this little girl who has a big old red bow in her hair, and her shirt says Make Magic Happen. And then down at the bottom, I found this puffy camera, and I was really thinking about going with just ideas of cameras and fireworks and magical things, because having the fireworks go off behind me is definitely a magical thing. I did pull out my Echo Park collection for the Disney line as well. I have the Echo Park Magical Birthday, I believe is what it's called, and it had the word birthday on it, which is in black, and it has a bunch of stars on it, and I thought that that was perfect. So I added the word birthday down flat, and then I found this chipboard piece that is almost the exact opposite of the birthday. So the birthday is black with stars on it, and then the magical is white with stars on it, so it gave it that contrast of black versus white. Then I pulled out these Mickey heads, and where the hearts are on the sketch, I figured that I would add the Mickey heads. I really wasn't paying attention to where the hearts were on the sketch. It was more about where the Mickey head looked okay on my pattern paper. And then I was also trying to go top and bottom so that the Mickey heads weren't right next to each other. I found a firework, which I added that right next to the word magical. And then I also found another smaller firework, and I added it to the other side of magical. And then I found a Mickey hat brad, so I added that to the word birthday. And I decided that my Mickey heads definitely needed some liquid adhesive. I found this little speech bubble that says smile, which I thought worked perfectly up above my little girl on the right hand side. So I used some ATG to add her down. And then I have this stamp. If you follow my channel, you know that I also have this in a stencil that I tried to use and wasn't very successful. But I also have it in a stamp and a die. And I had cut it out before and did not end up using it, so I just added it to my embellishment book. And I thought that it worked nicely next to the photo on the right. Then I have this sticker here that says Make a Wish, and I decided to add Fun Phone behind that to make it stand out a little bit, especially since I had the chipboard piece of the word magical. I wanted them to be level with each other. So I add that right next to the word magical. And then I bring my flare back in over on the right hand side. And then I'm looking through the sticker books. And when I tell you I have everything from all of these collections, it is crazy how much Disney supplies I have. I could probably work on a Disney layout for the rest of 2024 and not even put a dent in all of my supplies. It's just crazy because I love it so much, and I have so many Disney photos that I knew I was going to use it. So I add my flare down on the right, and then I go ahead and add that puffy camera over on the left-hand side. And I felt like I needed an embellishment starter, so I pulled out this bingo card. I didn't really like that, but I found an admit one ticket, and I was like, yep, I'm gonna make that work. So I've been doing this a lot lately where I'm building up these embellishment clusters and I'm struggling with it. So I have all of these embellishment pieces that are stuck to my hands and my fingers, and I'm trying to get them all down correctly on the layout. Do you guys ever struggle with anything like that? Let me know in the comments below. Like, are you pulling up your embellishment clusters and having them stuck to you so that you can try to figure out which order you want them? I prefer my embellishment clusters to all be touching, and that sometimes is a struggle when I'm wanting to tuck things under and have things on top of, as well as have some dimension. I did add that yellow sticker that says Say Cheese, as well as a word phrase that says I love this place, or really it says I heart this place. And then I added another brad, which is the Mickey hand. And that rounds out the cluster on the left-hand side. I also added another word phrase in the upper right-hand corner that says never too old for this. All right, and then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did my journaling off camera, which states, after collecting my customized button from Ye Old Christmas Shop, I paused to take photos in front of the castle. I managed to time it just right, and the photographer captured the fireworks beautifully. Once again, I do want to remind you to go check out everyone else who is participating in this very first double page series from 30 Days of Sketches with Chrissy's Beautiful Life. And stay tuned for another layout tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.